I feel like I'm one of the few Haunted Mansion fans who looks at Haunted Mansion Holiday, and I think that it's just as good as the original Haunted Mansion. I know it's very popular with tourists, it's very popular with the general public, but in terms of die-hard Haunted Mansion fans, it seems that most people prefer the original attraction by a lot. So today we're going to do a massive in-depth review of Haunted Mansion Holiday. At the time of this recording, Disney is currently redoing the queue area for the Haunted Mansion, so I have no idea what it's going to look like. I have no idea how it's going to feel. So we're going to focus on the indoor portion. But just to cover the outdoor section briefly, I love the outdoor decorations. It's very asymmetrical, which fits visually with Nightmare Before Christmas. It makes a lot of sense, and I think it looks pretty good. It does kind of step on the toes of Walt Disney's idea that we will take care of the outside and we'll let the ghosts take care of the inside, but it's only up for a few months of the year, so I don't feel like it's that big of a deal, and it's not like it's that ugly. Or their Christmas decorations with a Halloween twist. The most notable one is the massive list that Jack draped upon the mansion, so it covers the whole side of the building. I love the pumpkins on top. At night, the whole mansion is lit up with a bunch of candles, which I think looks amazing. They do a fun little sequence where they play some music and they count down the lighting of the mansion every night during Haunted Mansion Holiday, which I really like. I think that's really cool. But the biggest thing about the outdoor facade area is that I love the music box that's playing. It's the same music box that they play at Phantom Manor in Disneyland Paris. It is pretty loud, but I think it's perfect. It builds tension, it builds atmosphere. It's amazing. I love listening to that, so I greatly appreciate that touch. There's also a massive Jack Skellington on top of the front gate. He has a spinning snowflake in his hand, but it is kind of annoying how often that thing is broken. I feel like more often than not, I'll walk up to Haunted Mansion Holiday and I'll see the snowflake is not spinning, which is pretty annoying. But that's pretty much it for the outdoor sequence as of now. Let's step inside into the foyer. Foyer is great at setting tone, which we will discuss more at the end of the video. At the end of the video, we're going to go through all of the music, and we're going to go through all the scenes, and we're going to rank them all up. Let's step inside of the stretching room. So I am going to completely overanalyze the stretching room right now. So I'm going to go ahead and play the whole thing so that you can see the whole sequence from start to end before we break it down.
Was the nightmare before Christmas, and all through the house. Not a creature was peaceful, not even a mouse. The stockings, all hung by the chimney with care, when opened that morning, would cause such a scare. The children, nestled all snug in their beds, would have nightmares of monsters and skeleton heads.
So when you first walk into the stretching room, you'll notice that the portraits are gone, and on top of them are a bunch of stained glass. I feel like that's a really smart alternative to the original mansion, which of course had characters in each of the portraits, and then when the room stretched, it looked like they were about to die. So if they did something similar, it probably would have felt not very creative. It probably would have felt a little stolen from the original mansion. The alternative that they came up with is brilliant, where the stained glass portraits shatter, and then the actual portrait of the Haunted Mansion Holiday characters is revealed as the room stretches. So I really like that. The music in the stretching room is absolutely amazing. The highlight of the music in the stretching room is the grim grinning ghost quote right before Jack breaks through the ceiling. I also really like how the pre-show kind of comes full circle, because it starts with the stained glass portraits breaking, and then it ends with Jack breaking through the ceiling. I think that's pretty clever. And another thing is that it just kind of blows my mind how many more lighting effects they crammed into a pre-existing pre-show. Like, the stretching room is obviously classic, it's amazing, but it's just an undeniable fact that the version in Haunted Mansion Holiday has so many more lighting effects. Like, the portraits themselves light up, which is really cool. I really like that visual. So when Jack breaks through the ceiling, the portrait lights turn off, so you can see Jack more clearly, which I really like. The portraits themselves are also way thicker than the portraits on the original Haunted Mansion because they're actually covering the portraits of the original Haunted Mansion, which is really interesting. But back to the lighting effects, the biggest example is, of course, the whole ceiling is a giant projection screen, which is pretty cool. When Jack breaks through that ceiling, there are a couple of lighting effects by the gargoyles that make the illusion of falling glass a lot more interesting. And the stretching room used to have these projected skulls that would rise with the crescendo of the music to meet Jack at the ceiling.
The children, nestled all snug in their beds, would have nightmares of monsters and skeleton heads.
But most recently, they haven't been there since the pandemic. They haven't brought them back, which is kind of a shame because I really like that lighting effect. I feel like it adds to the tension. It adds to the crescendo, as I was saying right before the Grim Grinning Ghost quote. So I really miss that. I hope they bring it back. The Jack animation itself does look a little outdated, and it could probably use an upgrade in the next couple years. It's starting to look a little aged, you know. It does look like 2013 animation, which is when they created the animation, so that could use an update. Also, Zero officially becomes the first ghost that you see in any version of the Haunted Mansion, so that's pretty fun. So let's rewind a bit, and we're gonna talk about the ghost host. I love how his narration is framed as the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," but of course, since this is the Nightmare Before Christmas, it's "'Twas the Nightmare Before Christmas." When you enter the room, the text on the red ribbons reflects the first half of each line that the ghost host says as the ghost host goes through the poem. That's a total tongue twister. So I really like that. I'd also make the argument that the text is actually reflected in the stained glass portraits before they break. So the portrait above the red ribbon that says "'Twas the Nightmare Before Christmas" is like the exterior mansion. The portrait above the ribbon that says "Not a creature was peaceful" is the Christmas tree. The portrait above the ribbon that says "The stockings all hung by the chimney with care" are stockings over a fireplace. And then the portrait above the ribbon that says "The children nestled all snug in their beds" are kids in a bed. So I just love that when you walk into the room, you don't realize what the ghost host is gonna say, but it's already right there, you know? So the first half of each line is represented before the host even starts talking. It also kind of feels like a storybook, you know? Like if you open up a storybook, you could totally see those portraits represented in the illustrations. Like you have the exterior establishing shot of the mansion, and then you have the inside shots with the Christmas tree, the stockings, and the children in the bed. And then the portraits below the stained glass, when the room starts stretching, correspond with the second line that the ghost host says for all four portraits. The mansion glass portrait that breaks reveals one of two portraits depending upon which stretching room you're in. It either reveals the man-eating plant or it reveals Zero. The second line that the ghost host says for this first portrait is "and all through the house," which is the most vague line, so it's kind of hard to analyze. But the man-eating plant and Zero could represent the true nature of what is actually inside the house, which clashes with the clean visual of the classic mansion in the stained glass. The second portrait that breaks reveals Nightmare Teddy, and the second line for that second portrait that the ghost host says is "not even a mouse." And Nightmare Teddy kind of looks like a demented Mickey Mouse, which is kind of funny. The third portrait that breaks reveals Jack Skellington himself, and the second line that the ghost host says for this portrait is "when opened that morning would cause such a scare." And of course, Jack is the Pumpkin King, and he scares people, so that fits beautifully. For the final portrait, when it breaks, it'll reveal the snake, and the second line for this portrait that the ghost host says is "would have nightmares of monsters and skeleton heads." And of course, the giant snake is a massive monster. So all four of these portraits that are revealed after the room is fully stretched correspond with the second line that the ghost host says for their portrait. And as I mentioned earlier, the stretching room portraits are different. If you go on the left-hand side, if the doors open on the left-hand side when you're in the foyer, you're going to see the man-eating plant. If you go straight ahead in the foyer, you're going to see Zero and Jack on his sleigh instead of the man-eating plant. Another element of the portraits that I really like is the fact that they're foreshadowing what you're actually going to see in the ride experience, which I really, really like. I think it's really, really smart. So on top of connecting to the ghost host dialogue, it connects to the ride that you haven't even experienced yet. So the man-eating plant that we just mentioned is in the corridor. Zero and Jack on his sleigh are on the exit ramp for the attraction, and you can even see the mansion again in the bottom right hand corner of the portrait. And of course, this is the portrait that had the haunted mansion itself as the stained glass cover up. As for the 3 portraits that are in both stretching rooms, Nightmare Teddy is seen 5 times throughout the ride, and I believe this portrait depicts the first sighting where he's sitting on top of a pile of presents, which are still wrapped. In the attic, we see the unwrapped gifts, which are the mallard and the jumping pumpkin head. Of course, Jack is in the graveyard. You can even see the ghosts behind him in the portrait. And the final portrait is the snake, which is also in the attic. I kind of wish one of these portraits represented the ballroom or represented the seance room. Like, I feel like the attic is really overrepresented in terms of imagery in the stretching room. Like, it's a pretty brief sequence in the actual ride, but it has the mallard, it has the pumpkin in the second portrait, and of course it has the snake in the final portrait. And there's only 4 portraits, so the fact that the ballroom and the seance room go unrepresented is kind of lame. Like, even the exit ramp got a portrait, but the ballroom didn't. Which is kind of a bummer. So let's rewind again. We're going to start from the top, and we're going to talk about the lighting and the music this time. So when the scene begins, there is a low chord that kind of forces people to pay attention and to stop talking. Which is kind of heavy-handed, but it is a lot less likely for guests to talk over the ghost host during the Haunted Mansion holiday, as opposed to the classic Haunted Mansion where there's no low chord. The ghost host just starts talking, and so a lot of theme park guests feel comfortable just talking over the ghost host, which is really annoying. So I'm glad that Haunted Mansion holiday does something to make people shut up. I really like how when you first enter the stretching room, it's green and yellow, which is like holiday lighting, and as the room stretches, the ceiling shifts to purple and orange when the music starts, which really helps the transition from the warm, inviting holiday lighting to the more sinister Halloween colors and dialogue. Also, if you didn't know, there's a pretty clear hidden Mickey up in the stained glass ceiling, and it twinkles when the ghost host says the word mouse, which is really clever, and I think it's really cute. I really like how the body from the classic Haunted Mansion is projected on the ceiling as the guests exit the room. Plus, there's really creepy background music when you leave the stretching room, which is really cool. A criticism that I have of both versions of the Haunted Mansion is the fact that Jack will enter the room and he like jump scares the guests, and then the scream only happens after he leaves. So it's like the scream is like completely delayed, and it's the same thing with the original Haunted Mansion, which is just kind of funny and interesting. It's like you should scream when you see the jump scare. You're not supposed to scream after the after the character leaves you. But you know, I understand that our version of the Haunted Mansion has the door open after the scene completely ends, so it is what it is. It's a total nitpick. I do miss those colored skull lights from 2019. They, as I mentioned, they have not returned since the pandemic shutdown. I don't know why they got rid of them. I feel like it really helped out with the crescendo and the build of the music, so it's sad that they aren't there. Also, if you thought I was completely over-analyzing the portraits of Haunted Mansion Holiday, there are eyeballs on top of each portrait that literally highlight when the ghost host is talking about each of them. So as I mentioned, each portrait has a red ribbon that has the first half of each line that the ghost host says. When he starts saying that line on the ribbon, the eyes at the top of the portrait light up for each portrait. So when he first starts, the eyes above the Haunted Mansion stained glass are going to turn on. As the room starts stretching, the ghost host moves on to the second line. The eyes above Nightmare Teddy are going to turn on. Same for the third and the fourth. So it literally highlights how the portraits reflect with the ghost host dialogue. Like, he's literally highlighting them with the eyeballs at the top of the portraits. One little nitpick that I do have is you can see the eye holes when you first enter the room. Because the room isn't fully stretched out, you're a lot closer to them, so you can like see how they're defined in the frame for each of the portraits. Another element that helps with the crescendo of the music is the fact that all the gargoyles in the stretching room, they're wearing necklaces that are like chains that are all holding lanterns, and as the music builds, all the lights that the gargoyles gargoyles are wearing, they all turn on, which is a really cool visual. Something else is that the holiday decor near the gargoyles is black. It's not green, so I just think that's really interesting, and it's like a Halloween twist on Christmas decorations, which I really like. And then one last note on the stretching room before we move on is the fact that when nothing is projected on the ceiling, it looks really weird. So this only happens if you're in the stretching room for a really long amount of time for whatever reason. Like one time I got to the bottom of the stretching room and the portrait hallway was completely full, so we couldn't move. Other stretching room came down, so we had to merge together with both stretching rooms. So it was just a total nightmare. It added like 15-20 minutes to the wait time just to get out of the stretching room and into the buggies. So if you're in the stretching room for a really long amount of time, the projections on the ceiling are going to turn off, which is kind of a bummer. I don't know why they do that. I guess it's because you're not supposed to be in there for that long, but still. So we're finally out of the stretching room and we're in the portrait hallway. I really love the changing portraits. I love how Zero, when he flies through them, he changes them from wholesome holiday portraits to demented Halloween portraits. There's also some Nightmare Before Christmas characters in the first window on the left-hand side, which are pretty cute. The busts at the end of the hallway, they used to have Halloween or Christmas decorations in front of them, but last year they weren't there, so that was a little disappointing. And then you're gonna enter the load area, which has a massive Christmas card, which is very visually appealing. It has a whole bunch of Nightmare Before Christmas characters. It's amazing. It's really fun to look at, and it adds a lot of kinetic energy and excitement to the load area, which I really, really like. I think it's just amazing just to look at that thing. Something else about the load area is that when you're physically in your Doom buggy, if you listen to the official Haunted Mansion Holiday soundtrack, you'll hear an extra line of dialogue from the ghost host.
Yes, down through the chimney, Jack flew like a bat, clutching his magical Sandy Claus sack. He ripped open the sack and, in moments it seems, created a Christmas you have in bad dreams.
Which was cut from the actual attraction because they had to lengthen the safety spiel that he goes through. So it's just kind of a bummer that they had to get rid of a line of dialogue just to tell people not to be an idiot and to stay seated. So let's dig into this actual ride experience now that we're finally on a Doom buggy. The ride begins with climbing up a hill, which is basically climbing up into the show building after the stretching room took you down below the train tracks, which is pretty funny. This is where you're going to see your first Nightmare Teddy, which I believe is depicted in the stretching room. There are a few differences though. The physical Nightmare Teddy in the attraction is holding a fishing rod with a spider attached to it, and he isn't holding anything in the stretching room. And of course the gifts are wrapped in this section, while in the stretching room the toys are bursting out of the boxes. However, the wrapping paper right beneath Nightmare Teddy is pumpkin wrapping paper, and it has a yellow bow, which may represent the presents that you can see in the stretching room, which of course are the mallard and the pumpkin head. Once you reach the top of the ramp, I've had a couple syncing issues here a few times where like the music in the loading area is out of time with the music in the endless hallway. Which I don't know why that is. That's a little weird. And of course, Zero has taken over the endless hallway. He looks great. He looks absolutely amazing. I love that he has a bunch of bones in a dog bowl right in front of the stairs. I think that's great. And Zero looks amazing. It actually looks like he's floating, like it's Zero instead of the candelabra, which is really interesting. If you don't count Zero's appearance in the stretching room, then this is technically the first appearance of a physical ghost in any version of the Haunted Mansion. I also really like the pumpkin head on the knight on the right-hand side. I think that's fun. I think that's cute. But our Doom buggy is going to continue down into the corridor. So on the right-hand side, you're going to see your second Nightmare Teddy. This one is on top of the famous coffin from Haunted Mansion, which I think is really cool. For the most part, the corridor is pretty similar. It just has a few Christmassy twists to the knocking on the doors. When you reach the end of the corridor, you're going to see the biggest difference, which is an absolutely massive set piece unique to Haunted Mansion Holiday, which of course is the man-eating plant. It kind of blows my mind how this massive animatronic is only here for a few months out of the year. I think that's really impressive. He looks great. A little problem that I do have is his eyes, they usually work for like a month or two. Like consistently, they've had problems with his eyes in the later months of the overlay. Like last year, he just had eye covers that didn't follow you, which were honestly kind of creepy. So I hope that they figure this out. I don't know why. Your overlay should be working for the entire duration that it's operating. So it's kind of weird that the effect starts having problems in like December. Like they usually have it open from September to early January. His eyes won't follow you if you visit Disneyland in holiday time in December or January. But that is a nitpick. The animatronic is still very impressive, and it's crazy how he's just suspended above you. It's really impressive. And then you're gonna pass the grandfather clock. It has a tag gifting it from Jack to Leota, which I really like, which brings you into the seance room. I love the seance room. I love how Madame Leota is an ornament. I feel like that's really creative. That's really fun because of course she's floating in the center of the room, so she just becomes an ornament for Haunted Mansion Holiday. And Leota is going through the 13 days of Christmas. So around the perimeter of the room are 13 cards, and each card is decorated to fit with the dialogue of Leota. So she'll describe what happens on each day. The card that reflects the day is decorated to reflect her description, which I really like. I can't believe how much detail they put into it. It's just like the stretching room portraits. Unlike the stretching room portraits, we're not going to go through all of these cards, so you're welcome. This room has the third Nightmare Teddy. He's right behind Leota on top of the chair. He's ringing a bell, a requiem bell, which I really like.
When you hear the knell of a requiem bell.
And I really, really, really like the possessed nutcracker right in front of Leota. I think it's really cute. It's a really understated effect that a lot of people don't talk about, and I think he's amazing. And that's going to bring you into the ballroom, which might be like the Haunted Mansion ballroom is like one of the most visually impressive sequences of any theme park attraction ever. And then Haunted Mansion Holiday kept that existing sequence, but it just added a whole bunch of holiday twists on top of it. So it's really, really cool. I really, really love it. There's a whole bunch of snow on the floor. Of course, the main set piece for the ballroom is going to be that gingerbread house in the center. Every single year it is different. So that gives people a reason to ride Haunted Mansion Holiday every single year to see what gingerbread house that they came up with. I really liked the one last year with Von Ginger. I think that was amazing. Very cute and a little sinister. On the left-hand side of the ballroom, you're going to have a massive Christmas tree, which is dying, which I really like. Like the floor even has like the Christmas tree pines, which I think is a really clever detail. They added a bunch of presents below the dying Christmas tree. There's a train that goes around the base of it. So that's just really, really cool. In the normal Haunted Mansion, there's a curtain in the back of the ballroom that is closed. But for Haunted Mansion Holiday, they open it up to reveal a library with a bunch of spinning books, which I think is really cool. That's really amazing. I really, really like that. Like the existing ballroom scene is still there. They just put everything on top of that, which is really, really impressive. And another thing that I love is the music, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the music at the end of the video. But just know that I love the ballroom. I love it so much. It's probably my favorite sequence in Haunted Mansion Holiday. So you're going to turn left into the attic, which is one of the shortest sequences on the attraction. It's pretty much just that one turn, and it is a little underwhelming after the visual masterpiece, which is the ballroom, but it's still cute. They pretty much just got rid of all the attic junk and they replaced it with presents. The bride isn't there for Haunted Mansion Holiday, but there is a miniature bride on the right hand side, so it's kind of clever. Like the bride never left, she's just hiding out of view. I really like. So this scene is cute. It's fine. There's nothing egregiously wrong with it. At the end of the attic is of course the Hatbox Ghost, but they didn't really do anything for him for Haunted Mansion Holiday. They just put a little bit of snow by his feet and they added a bow on his hat, so that's fun. That's cute. It's fine. I'm planning on making a full breakdown of the original Haunted Mansion, so we're kind of gonna gloss over aspects of the Haunted Mansion that are there that aren't really changed for Haunted Mansion Holiday. So that's when you're gonna start your descent into the graveyard. Above you, instead of a crow, is the fourth Nightmare Teddy. He's biting into a bunch of holiday lights, which I think is really cool. There's a cool effect where like sparks go off in his mouth, which I think is really awesome. That looks amazing. amazing. And then at the base of the descent, you are going to find Jack Skellington himself. So I think the animatronic looks amazing. It's really great. You get an up close look at Zero, which you didn't have before. It really looks like he's floating, which is really impressive. But a major downside about the entire ballroom sequence is the snow on the ground, which I really like. It looks amazing. But the thing about the snow is that it brings a lot more light into this finale sequence. So just like the ballroom, the graveyard scene in the original Haunted Mansion is like one of the most iconic sequences in any theme park attraction ever. But the bright lights are kind of a bit of a downgrade. It might be my least favorite aspect of Haunted Mansion Holiday. Like, the light really draws attention to the ceiling because the ceiling will catch the light and kind of reflect it back at you. So sometimes it'll draw my attention to the ceiling even though there's nothing up there. And that like never happens during the classic Haunted Mansion. Another thing is, I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but there are two massive nets that go across the length of the entire graveyard. And during Haunted Mansion Holiday, it's a lot easier to see them. During the classic Haunted Mansion, I feel like it's a lot more difficult to make them out because it's a lot darker. So that's probably the biggest downside of Haunted Mansion Holiday. That being said, though, the graveyard is still visually impressive. It's still spectacular. They brought that twisted hill from Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, they physically built it inside the attraction. So it's a really massive set piece in the graveyard, which I really, really like. I feel like it's amazing. Every time that the classic Haunted Mansion reopens in January, I feel like the graveyard can be a little underwhelming because that massive set piece just completely disappears. But then I get used to it again. So it's really impressive how tall that mountain is, and you can see it before you even enter the graveyard. So it's really cool. It has a bunch of fun lighting. With the jack-o'-lanterns flashing, so that brings more energy into the graveyard, which I really like. The decorations throughout the entire graveyard are amazing. Like, all the existing animatronics are still there from Haunted Mansion, except for the singing bus. They're covered up with a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns, which I feel like is fine. I feel like they deserve a few months off from constantly singing. But it's still a visually spectacular sequence. You have Sally on the left-hand side earlier in the graveyard, which I really like. I'm glad that Sally has a presence in this overlay. And you also have these massive angels, like snow angels, which is really cute. I think that's really funny. Jack probably told one of his minions to build snow angels. The Halloween Town people don't know what a snow angel is, so this is their interpretation of a snow angel, which I think is really cute. That's really clever. I think that's funny. They all have like trumpets that they're blaring. The last one looks like it's blaring it in your face as you exit the graveyard. And of course, the fifth and final Nightmare Teddy is on top of the exit for the graveyard, and he also has a little horn that he's blaring. So I think that's really cute. I love all 5 of the Nightmare Teddies. They're all amazing. And instead of the hitchhiking ghosts at the end of the attraction, you are met with Oogie Boogie, who is going to give you a present. Just like Sally, I'm glad that Oogie Boogie has some presence in the attraction. Presence. That's hilarious. I didn't even mean to do that. So instead of seeing the reflection of a hitchhiking ghost in the mirror, you're going to see a present pop up in front of you. You might get jump scared by Lock, Shock, or Barrel, which is really fun. I love when that happens to my buggy because it's like you're the chosen one. That's fun. That's cute. And it's amazing. And then you're going to reach the exit area. So you're going to hop off of your Doom buggy, and then you're going to go straight up the exit ramp. And this is where you're going to see Sally, who's really small. Honestly, she looks kind of bad. I really don't like her projected face. I feel like this is one of the sequences that they could clean up. They could make it look a lot better because Sally doesn't look like she's in the best shape. You also have the moon, which will have the silhouette of Sandy Claus flying away with his sleigh. And that is Haunted Mansion Holiday. So as I promised, we're going to dig into the music now. In order, you have the outdoor music box, which, as I mentioned, I really like. I feel like it's great at setting atmosphere. Second, in the foyer, you're going to have a musical cover of Jack's Lament and Deck the Halls, which is really atmospheric. The stretching room is gonna have children humming Deck the Halls. And of course, the grim grinning ghosts quote is the highlight of the stretching room at the end of it. From the portrait hallway all the way through the end of the corridor is going to be Kidnap the Sandy Claus. It actually crescendos really, really well. Like, it starts with just the instruments. And then it's going to end with the plants singing. The seance room is going to have Jack's Lament sung by a children's choir. And the ballroom is going to have an arrangement of Kidnap the Sandy Claus, Jack's Lament, and Carol of the Bells, which I absolutely love. The attic has an arrangement of What's This?, Deck the Halls, and Jingle Bells. I think this is one of the weaker musical pieces for Haunted Mansion Holiday. The graveyard is going to have a mix of We Wish You a Merry Christmas, Jolly Old St. Nicholas, and it ends in a chorus of Grim Grinning Ghosts, with a few What's This thrown in there, just for good measure. And then the music in the exit crypt is very, 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 very annoying. It's so annoying. I really don't like it. So let's rank the music. Those are 9 arrangements that I just went through for 9 different sequences in the attraction. So number 9 is obviously the exit crypt, very annoying. Number 8 is going to be the attic, which is fine. It's pretty forgettable. It's not great, especially because it comes right after one of the best musical sequences in the attraction. Number 7 is going to be the outdoor music with the music box. I really, really like this. I think it builds anticipation, it builds excitement, and it has a bit of mystique and mystery, which I really like, so I kind of feel bad putting it so low, but this attraction just has so much great music. Number 6 is going to be the seance room. It's really eerie, it's really fun, it's really amazing. Number 5, this might be a little low for some people, is the graveyard. What's this? It just kind of feels unfocused. Like, I kind of feel like it could have been more exciting if they just stuck with one song, but they just cluttered so many together that musically I don't think it's the most satisfying thing in the world, but it's still one of the most visually impressive sequences in the attraction, and it's still absolutely amazing. I just feel like it could be more focused, which is why it isn't higher. Like, this definitely had the potential to be number 1, but it's just not there, especially since it's literally an overlay of Grim Grinning Ghosts, which has lived in the graveyard since the 60s, so that's a little disappointing, but it is what it is. Number 4 is the foyer music. Just like the outdoor music, I feel like this is great at building anticipation and excitement. I really, really like it. Number 3 is going to be the portrait hallway all the way through to the corridor. Kidnap the Sandy Claus gets stuck in my head every time I ride Haunted Mansion Holiday. I feel like it's just absolutely amazing. I really, really like it. I'll just be humming it in the car, you know? So it's really catchy. It's really amazing. Number 2 is going to be the stretching room. I love, love, love the music in the stretching room. I think it's just absolutely spectacular. It's so much fun. It really crescendos as the room is stretching, which is like very exciting. You feel the energy build throughout the entire pre-show, and then it culminates with Jack breaking through the ceiling, which I really like. This might be my favorite pre-show of all time, if you couldn't tell by how long I was talking about it. I absolutely love, love, love the Haunted Mansion Holiday stretching room. But number 1 is the ballroom music. I love the ballroom music. It's just spectacular. You really feel the energy in there. It's really catchy. There are multiple parts that I will just listen to over and over and over again. Like, I absolutely love the ballroom music. It is spectacular. So now that we went through all of the music and we ranked the music, we're gonna go through all of the scenes, and we're gonna rank the scenes of Haunted Mansion Holiday. When I say scene, it means something that you pass through while on a doom buggy. So we're gonna leave out the stretching room. We're gonna leave out the outdoor queue. So the scenes in order are the endless hallway, corridor, the seance room, the ballroom, the attic, the graveyard, and then the exit crypt. So those are 7 different scenes. So we're going to rank these up real quick. Number 7 is going to be the exit crypt. There's not much to this scene. It's pretty bare bones. There isn't much that they could do for the overlay, and I feel like the music really drags it down because I really believe that the music is super annoying. I really don't like it. Number 6 is the attic, which is overrepresented in the stretching room, but it's just a really brief sequence, and in terms of visuals, you have the jack-o'-lantern, the mallard, the snake with the massive list of names, which is really cute, but like outside of that, there's not that much to this scene. Number 5 is going to be the endless hallway with Zero. I really like it. I feel like they added a lot to it. I love the music. I love the visuals. It feels like a very creative combination of the original Haunted Mansion with the Nightmare Before Christmas. So I really like it. They put a lot of thought into it, and I'm glad that Zero has like his own devoted section in the mansion. Number 4 is going to be the seance room. This is like really impressive from a musical perspective. Like, I really like how the decorations in the scene reflect what Madame Leota goes through. I feel like that's brilliant. Someone obviously spent a lot of time designing all of those cards, and I feel like most people won't even realize that what Madame Leota's saying is literally on the cards behind them. So I think that's really creative. I think that's really fun. I appreciate how much time and effort they put into making that happen, and I really like the sequence overall. Unfortunately, a couple of the other ones just have a lot more visually. No disrespect to Madame Leota, she's still a spectacle, but there's just more to the sequences that we're going to dig into next. Number 3, which is the corridor right before that. The music really helps add to how high this ranking is. I love the singing plants. I love the doors are pretty much the same, but I love all the cute little decorations, and of course you have the man-eating plant, which when it's working is a great climax to that sequence. I feel like it's just absolutely amazing. It's wonderful, and again, it's just so impressive that the scale of that animatronic, which is just hanging onto the ceiling right above your ride vehicle. Number 2 is going to be the graveyard. So if the man-eating plant is impressive, the mountain that they put inside the graveyard is like beyond impressive. It's just absolutely incredible. I love the lights. There's a really great energy in the graveyard. Of course, it's one of the longest scenes in the Haunted Mansion, so it has that going for it. Like, you can see the scene before you even enter it, with the descent out of the attic, which I really like. It's pretty much just the second half of the entire attraction. I think it's just absolutely amazing. As I mentioned, I do think the music could be better, but it's still spectacular. And that leaves number 1 with the ballroom. So they just added everything to this scene. Like, the existing scene is still there. It's like the heart of the ballroom still exists. It's still the same spectacular scene. They just added so many layers to it that I feel like I have to ride Haunted Mansion Holiday a whole bunch of times just to see everything in the ballroom. And of course, I absolutely love the music. So it's my favorite piece of music in Haunted Mansion Holiday, and the sequence is visually appealing. There's so much to unpack in that scene that I absolutely love, which makes this an easy number 1 for me. So that is Haunted Mansion Holiday. If you couldn't tell, this is one of my favorite things at the entire Disneyland Resort. This is one of my favorite things the Disney company has ever done. I love the Haunted Mansion just as much as I love Haunted Mansion Holiday, and I feel like most people don't feel that way, which is kind of a bummer because I feel like they put a lot of time, they put a lot of effort, they put a lot of creativity into Haunted Mansion Holiday, and sometimes that just gets brushed off by Haunted Mansion purists just because it's an overlay. But I think that this overlay is absolutely genius, and it gives a bunch of tourists a reason to come to Disneyland twice, because you got to experience the original Haunted Mansion and you have to experience Haunted Mansion Holiday. I absolutely love both. I can't pick a favorite. Haunted Mansion Holiday is just absolutely amazing. So do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Please let me know in the comments below. How do you feel about how I rank the scenes? Are there any details that I missed, or is there anything else that I should have talked about? Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you later.